Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Before we get started, let me just say that we get it. Personal development can be hard, but you don't have to do it alone. Project Endure has been on a mission to create a supportive and inspiring community of people, all striving to be better together. Head down to the link in the show notes and join the Hard Things Club so that we can do hard things together. And if you're already a member, invite a friend and spread the love. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast, episode 105. We have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and we have a very, very, very special guest out in the state of Washington, Cole Sager. Cole, how you doing?
I'm good, Joe. Thanks for having me on, man. This is something I've been looking forward to in a big way. So I really appreciate you having me on.
Means a lot. I've been looking forward to this for a while as well. And I know a little bit about your story. I know a lot about your time in the world of CrossFit, and I'm excited to learn more about that and your life outside of fitness. And so before we start and really dive in, I would love for you to just introduce yourself to the people listening.
Yeah. My name's Cole Sager. I've been competing in CrossFit in a professional capacity for full-time professional for the last 8 years, but I actually just qualified for my 10th consecutive CrossFit Games 2 weekends ago at the the West semifinal, CrossFit semifinal, which is a pretty big accomplishment. There's only been two other guys that also did it this year to ever qualify for 10 consecutive games. So that's pretty exciting. But prior to that, I played college football, played at the University of Washington, played for the Huskies here in Seattle, Washington. That was an amazing career. And, I am from a small town and, had a lot of small town principles instilled in me. And, the whole purpose and reason why I compete in athletics is to hopefully, bring some encouragement to somebody else's life through the challenges and adversity that I have to overcome, and be a positive, bright light along the way, and hope to do some good. So, I'm a pretty simple guy. I got a beautiful little family, got a little boy who's 2.5 years old, and a wonderful wife that's been so supportive of me along the way. And I'm excited to tell more of my story here.
Yeah, you've certainly been an encouragement to so many, myself included. I think social media in that way, it has been a blessing to so many because you get to share your light with the world. I am curious, have you always been such a positive person, or is that something you've grown into as you've grown up?
Yes to both of those. I think that naturally there's a little bit of a light that I always had in me that has only just gotten stronger and grown as it's been fostered and nourished. You know what I mean? It's definitely one of those things. It's like a seed, right? Like it's a seed that's planted in you when you're young. Um, it's been hard to pinpoint exactly where that is. It's almost like when you have to plant your garden at the beginning of the season. You might have to plant a handful of seeds, and not all of them take. And it's one of those scenarios where, like, I feel like in my childhood, I had a handful of people that saw something in me. Maybe going back to the garden analogy, some fertile soil, some good soil that they could plant some seeds in. And I feel like I've had a handful of people that, when I was young, plant seeds in me and say, "Hey, I think that you could be something better than what this world is trying to bring you into." And I think from there, it was just a matter of putting myself in environments that cultivated that nourished that watered it, and helped to grow that more and more. So I think yes to both those questions. I think that in a sense, it's been there. It's always been there in me, and a gift that I've been given from a young age. But then also, I've absolutely had to cultivate that along the way.
Mm. Are there specific people that you can look back at your life so far and think, wow, that seed that this person planted really took in my life, and I'm so grateful for them?
Yes, actually, there's one interaction specifically when you asked that came to mind. And it was with this. He was the drug and alcohol counselor at our high school, and it was, I believe it was my freshman year. If not, it was my sophomore year, but still a young high school kid, and name was Mr. Zeiser. He was, I mean, to me back in the day, he seemed like a 6'4" giant, bald, and he had like a handlebar mustache. Like he was intimidating as could be. It had a deep, raspy voice, and just like, yeah, he was a hard looking dude. And but Mr. Zeiser had a sweetheart, and I don't know what it was, but he started turning to me and looking and like I said, planting some of those seeds. And there was an interaction with a student that I know I didn't handle in the best way. It wasn't a terrible interaction. It wasn't like this big blown up thing. But I think that's what made it so special, is because it wasn't that big of a deal, but it was just slightly off and it could have been handled better. And he pulled me to the side and he just straight up called it what it was. And he said, "You are better than that. Be better than that. Do better than that." And it was a convicting experience. And I was like, like a freshman in high school. Like, give me a break, dude. Like, but he wasn't going to. And the rest of my high school career, it felt like he was just there to whenever I wanted to get out of the alleyway, he was just the bumpers that would bring me back into my lane. And but I feel like I've had a handful of those people throughout my life. Like I can think of a PE teacher of mine when I was in middle school who did some, not some similar things, but always was just a constant drip of encouragement. My sixth grade teacher, I remember, in sixth grade, we were watching this really just kind of one of those drawn out, boring movies, or whatever. You could probably picture those. Like it's like, and the room was dark, and I was kind of like, I was personally getting sleepy, and one of my friends like was laughing at me, so I just kind of like did like the fake like like I was just pretending. And then I wasn't trying to like be funny like a clown in front of the class. It was just to my friend. In that moment, my teacher pulled me out into the hallway and same interaction. "You're better than that. You like don't behave like that because you're better than." And it's just like it was an interesting thing. Like, what are they seeing? They're obviously seeing something in me that I need to explore and I need to pull out of myself. And I thought that was a really interesting thing. So yeah, I think there's a handful of those, throughout my childhood that I feel like really are the catalyst to seeing that in myself. And I think that for all of us, it kind of starts that way. Somebody has to see it in you before you can see it in yourself sometimes. And that's been a really interesting thing to experience.
It's so funny that you brought all of that up because I was just having a conversation with a group of guys from church, and we were talking about how it's really hard to confront somebody and tell them that they might be doing something wrong or they could be doing something better, and to do that in love. And then on the flip side, as the person receiving that, to put aside the ego and realize, hey, this person truly cares about me, and I might not want to hear this right now, but they're doing this because they see something in me. It's such a powerful thing. And so were you able to accept those things as a middle schooler and a high schooler? Were you able to put the ego aside?
I was, and I'm thankful for it. Like I really am. And I think that um I was, but I don't think it was because I don't think it was because of me. I think there was something bigger happening, right? I think it was honestly like a gift from God, and really good parenting from my parents. You know what I mean? It's like something that had been cultivated at home that allowed me to like, okay, like I'll receive that. Like I can take that. And it didn't feel good at the time, and I absolutely, like, part of you wants to kind of like kick back a little bit, like, what, like, no, like, but for some reason, yeah, I kind of took a step back and I started to explore some things in myself. Like, okay, like, yeah, if they can see that, then maybe I should be able to see that. Maybe I can be better. And I'm so grateful for it. I'm really grateful for those experiences. And honestly, I want to, like you said, I now want to be the person in the world that will do that for somebody else, that will do that for my friends, that will do that for my wife. Like that's a hard thing to do, is to confront your spouse, and I hope that she does it for me, but then also to do that for my children and their friends and any kids and generations below me that I'm mentoring, right? Like absolutely. I now want to be that person in the world.
Yeah, it takes a humble spirit to be able to accept and to provide that kind of feedback to somebody. And then
Thank
also, I was thinking you're such a humble guy and you compete at such a high level in CrossFit. Those two things on the surface don't seem to match because you kind of see, the physical appearance, the grit, the determination, the hey, I am going to compete at the highest level. And that doesn't seem on the surface again to match with the humility. How do you make those two things blend?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. I think that you're exactly right on the surface. Most of the time, athletes are getting into athletics and competition out of ego, out of drive for and thirst for something for themselves. Um, but I believe that some of the athletes in the world that have had the greatest impact or have done a lot of good are the athletes that were competing for something so much bigger than that, that's more important than that, and that has been the the peak, the foundation in which I wanted to build my athletic career on my whole life is if you're going to do this with the intent and purpose of helping somebody, of doing it for a good intent, for a good reason, and out of humility. And I think that if you can compete off of that foundation, it is so much stronger. And honestly, you can probably most likely be a better athlete because of it. And the company and my coach Ben Bergeron and the company he has CompTrain. One of their slogans is "Better athletes make or better humans make better athletes." And I really love that principle. When I first heard that from them, I was like, hey, that is very much how I've always wanted to approach my athletic career. And so, and not only that, but when you're going through your athletic career with the intent of like, hey, if I can get through this challenge, this will help me be able to help somebody else. I think that it helps carry you through more adversity and challenges. You have something deeper that you can rest on rather than I want this because I want to build a legacy and I want finances and I want popularity. It's like those things are so fleeting and they're here today and gone tomorrow, dust in the wind, that it's like as soon as it gets hard, like that's so easy to give up on. It's so easy to give up on. But I've always told this story throughout my career of like there's genuinely like there's like this like set of eyes, this person that I can sense and I can feel in me that like I know that I'm going to touch their life through my career in some way, shape, or form. And I may never get to meet them, but I know that they're out there. And every once in a while, like I will feel their presence on me and be like, I can get through this. Like I can give a little bit more and I can go a little harder and go a little deeper. And so, I really appreciate you acknowledging that and saying that, because it is a really interesting dichotomy in an athlete that you don't see a lot these days. And I hope that can be inspired in more people, and not only in more athletes, but genuinely in more athletes because so many people look to athletes that maybe then it can be instilled in more people and we can all live our lives in that manner. And I think what good can come from that. And I think it would be amazing.
One of my good friends sent me a message when he knew you were going to be on the podcast, and he said, I'm going to paraphrase, but he said, I love Cole. I love how he puts Christ over CrossFit.
Mm.
And it was just a really nice way of kind of speaking to your faith. And I'm curious to learn more about your faith and also how your faith interacts with your CrossFit career.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It is the foundation, 100%, and I've been doing this for a long time. And I have, I've been, I've kind of been put on blast a couple times throughout my careers for my faith and being outspoken and things like that. And that's fine, get scrutinized, and I'm good with that. Like I'm totally good with that. Um, but it's one of those scenarios of like you've probably heard it intertwined in even just my verbiage and the way that I speak is I try to speak in the principles of Christ and the grace that God has given me. And Because it's been a really interesting thing to see in that shift when I used to be, even early on in my career, a little bit more forthright with faith words, blessing words, things of that nature, and seeing one group receive so openly, another group being resistant. And so I started to try to get artful with words. And it's been a really interesting shift when you speak the message of Christ in a more easily received way, how receptive people are. All people are receptive of it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's been a really interesting thing to experience, which I love because it again is just a testament to the truth and the foundation of what we can build upon. But that has been the foundation of my life. It's the faith that has been given to my soul to in my heart that like, hey, I want to love on people the way that Christ loved me. And that is truly 100% the reason why I compete. Like, if Christ can love me the way that I am, and like all of the thoughts and things that I have had and experienced and done, like I can love other people and I can be open and people can be welcome into my world. Um, and I can give more of myself. You know what I mean? And so that has been a big driver of for me and how I operate in the space and very much how and what I've leaned on.
So, so beautiful. And I'm grateful for you sharing. And I'm sure that faith will be interwoven into our conversation throughout today. And we'll jump into the deep stuff with the first big question. When you look back at your life to this point, what's the hardest thing that you've ever had to handle that you did not choose for yourself?
Yeah, yeah. Um, Getting into some deep waters here, man. I love it. That's actually one of the things that I've gotten to get a little serious on you. Like I've gotten so tired of um, in my in adulthood is experiencing how few how few people want to go into the deep waters and talk about hard things in life. And I feel like so many people want to stay on the surface and they don't want to give too much of themselves and they don't want to experience too much of others. And so we all walk around staying on the surface of things. And really, the things that are going to make life sweeter and help make us better, they're in the deep. And it's in the deep conversations, it's in the hard questions, it's in the deep questions and the well thought out ones and well thought out answers. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate that you would just take it there, because it's really easy to dance around that. You know what I mean? So, but along those lines, I've had uh, quite the quite the challenging last couple years, and honestly, it's what makes this 10th year for me really really sweet because I've had a handful of things that when we get into those, but a handful of things that have really brought perspective to what training and competing should be. And it's really put things into place and again, gave really just brought great perspective. But, um, it's again, and we talked about it at the very beginning, but it's amazing what walking through those things will teach you. And I truly believe that going through athletics, like sports is like living life and fast forward.
Hmm.
The things that you can learn in the season of a sporting event, in a competition weekend, like the things that you can learn in a competition weekend, in a season, or even in a training session that you're taking yourself, the things that you can learn about yourself, the life principles that you can take, it's absolutely astonishing when you can learn those things in those short periods of time, and it might take somebody a lifetime to learn those and to experience those and to overcome those challenges and understand those principles in a deep sense. But if we wake up every day and we challenge ourselves in the gym, we challenge ourselves in the disciplines of our daily life and really give ourselves to those, it will teach us some really profound principles that we can continue to, one, carry with us and to pass off to other people. And I feel like sports has been that for me. I think early on, even, you know, one of the hardest things that I experienced when I was younger was having to overcome being having like my recruiting what would it be called, like the recruiting process pulled out from underneath my feet. I'd been talking to the UW coaching staff. I'd been talking to Boise State coaching staff. I had a handful of offers from other coaches. I really wanted to play at UW. Well, their whole coaching staff was fired, and then a new coaching staff came in, and all communications was just like cut. And I was like, I don't know what to do here. Like, I'm not on anybody's recruiting list. The only reason why I was like, even in the conversation, is because I showed up to training camps and I called a bunch of times, and I was just like, I was that pest. You know what I mean? It was like I'm committed, and like you want me because I'm that committed. Kind of like I was kind of that dude, right? So when all lines were essentially like cut off and I couldn't get a hold of the new coaching staff, I was just like what am I going to do here? Um, and um, I essentially leaned on that concept of like I am that guy that I will bust doors down. And so when I couldn't get a hold of anybody, I signed myself. I was 18 at the time. It was my senior year. I signed myself out of class, and I drove down to Seattle, recruiting tape in hand and resume in hand. And I went to the UW coach's office, and I sat in the waiting room for over 4 hours until the running back coach would come out and talk with me. And they sent out a handful of like GAs and assistants and whatnot, like, hey, like, will you just go get the tape and like send the kid off? And I was like, no, not until coach comes out and talks to me. I'll be here like whenever he's ready. I got time. Like, got nothing else to do. And like they were trying to sweat me out, and I was starting to sweat. And but it was one of those scenarios of like, hey man, like if you really want this, you got to go willing to go beat some doors in and go sit and challenge. So like that was a really interesting thing to experience in me, because it's one of those pivotal moments of like, wow, I now know that that's in me, and that is something that I can continue to build off of, because that's in me. And so that means that you are that person that will do that, and you will do that in other areas of your life. And so that was a really, I guess, a turning moment for me as a young man, that I think has led into some of the other challenges that I've experienced in adulthood. And it doesn't matter what the circumstances are and what adversity you faces, you're going to persevere, and you're going to continue to drive and lean into things. And that's been something I'm really grateful for, is just those little touches that you get when you're younger, that if you're willing to pay attention, but you got to pay attention, right? You have to be willing to seek and explore that, because if you're not, it'll go right by you, and you won't even realize that that's in you. And so I'm really glad that I had the discernment to pay attention to that's inside of me, and to continue to persevere. And I've seen that play off and pay off time and time again.
So I've got a quote and then a question. The quote is from Sarah Kay, who said, because there's nothing more beautiful than the way the ocean refuses to stop kissing the shoreline, no matter how many times it's sent away. And I
Mm.
think, to your point, that persistence is incredibly powerful. And it doesn't feel beautiful in the moment, but I can tell you for a fact that sitting on this side of the podcast, listening to you tell that story, it's such a beautiful thing that you were willing to be so persistent, and it clearly paid off. And I think that's not just true for you, but it can be true for anybody who's willing to endure that, to continue to show up and keep kissing the shoreline. Now, earlier in your answer, you referenced some recent challenges, I think related to your career. If you're up for talking about them, I would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, for sure. So um, uh, it's so hard to talk about, but what the first one was recently. I lost my best friend to brain cancer back in November. He passed away, and the last couple of years have kind of been a whirlwind of challenges. So I'll back up to December of 2020. Kind of on the kind of midway point, kind of tail end, hope, of lockdown and whatnot, and the pandemic. Genesee and I were pregnant at the time, and we had our little boy early. Jack, he came 3 months early, and that was a pretty traumatic experience. He was born 3 months premature. He had severe IUGR. He was born at 1 pound 12 ounces. Go pick up a shaker bottle and fill that up, so 20 ounces or so. Fill up your shaker bottle and then hold that in your hand, and that was the size of Jack. Like, he was just so tiny, and so fragile. And through his stay, he was in the NICU for 3 months, and through his stay, there was just kind of an up and down roller coaster. And um, there's a one point in time where, like, it was a really hit and miss. Wasn't sure, like, if he was going to make it, kind of thing. And so that was hard. That was definitely a big challenge. And I continued to compete and I continued to train, and that was something that I had to train through and compete through, because of the commitment that I set out in the beginning. And that leads to the next thing is Jack got out of the NICU in just before April, and then a month later, about a month and a half later, Cody, my best friend, was diagnosed with glioblastoma, which is it's a stage 4 brain cancer. It's the worst, essentially the worst cancer that somebody can face. And anybody who's diagnosed with it, for the most part, somewhere in the 1 to 5 year range, of what they have. So it was a really hard diagnosis to receive then. And Cody was the whole reason I got into CrossFit in the first place too. And I think that's what I think is probably part of the underlying story that I'm talking about here, is that perseverance, that willing to endure things. Is Jack was born premature. We drove, I believe it was, let's see here, 100 and how many times was it? 180 trips back and forth to the NICU, half hour one way. So, that's 2 hours plus in the car every day, while coming back and training in the garage, going back there and spending the whole day there. And then you'd come back and train a little bit, and, things like that. It was not an ideal training environment. We spent most of our time in the NICU, like our second home. But tying that back to Cody, who again was diagnosed with brain cancer, terminal brain cancer, shortly after Jack got out of the NICU. He was the whole reason I got into CrossFit, and the whole reason he convinced me to get into CrossFit, because when he first told me that I was going to start doing, he told me I was going to start doing CrossFit. Like, he sat me down in Chipotle. He's like, "Hey, dude, like, you're going to start doing CrossFit." I laughed in his face. I was like, "That's absolutely not. Like, CrossFit it's a comical thing. It's not a sport. They do push-ups and pull-ups and bands. Like, heck no. Like, I play football. I'm too tough." Like, that kind of thing, right? And so, he was like, "Dude, like, drop the ego. Just check out these videos." And the hook, line, and sinker was, he didn't send me any games footage or anything like that. He sent me a video of Rich Froning and Dan Bailey talking about their faith, and wanted to have a positive impact. I wish I could find the video. I should really try to find that, because it was awesome. Like, they were just sitting there talking about their faith and how they wanted to have a positive impact in the community. And he was like, "Check this out. Like, these are like the best in the sport, and this is what they're talking about." And I was like, "I'm in. Let's do this." Absolutely. And it was because Cody and he literally was like, "Dude, like, this is a community that we could get into, that we could build a platform. You could do this, and, like, we could use that to, like, reach people and to, like, love on people, love the people who other people don't want to love, to encourage and discourage people." Like, dude, like it could be so fun. He was so passionate. He was so, like, fired up. He's like, we could really help people who are struggling. And I was like, "I'm in, dude. Let's go." Like, I will stop. And so I didn't do my pro day. I gave up football, like, instantly. Started doing CrossFit 6 months later. Like, I've qualified for my first regionals back in 2013. And now we're 10 years later, and here's my career, and it's been absolutely incredible. But going through that time with Jack in the NICU, Cody being diagnosed, and then that year of Cody fighting brain cancer and having multiple surgeries, and being in the hospital, in and out of the hospital and whatnot, going through that, it was that commitment I made 12 years ago with him of like, we're going to do this to build a platform to impact people's lives, to help people, to be a positive light, to do good in the world.
Mm.
And um, it was my commitment to that that I was like, I can't let these take me off track. I got to keep pushing through this regardless of the circumstances and just keep persevering through that. Um, and so that has been, again, it's just, I'm thankful that I had been shown that that is in me when I was younger, because I knew that at some point in time life's going to knock on your door, and it's not just going to like slap you in the face, it's going to kick your teeth in. And so fast forward through Cody's uh, year, battling cancer. He passed away in November this last year, and I mean, hard for obvious reasons, but um, you know, love and miss him. But it has actually, it's been a good thing for me in a sense because it's really almost brought a newness back to competing. It's like I'm starting at the beginning again because you lose somebody like that who's had such a impact on your life that you kind of you go back and face all of those moments again, right?
Mm.
And you remember all of the things that you committed to, and so many of the things that you've felt along the way that maybe started to callous you and make you feel different and maybe even a little bit more bitter than your heart should be, kind of seems to melt off and burn away. And all of a sudden, perspective is brought back in. And Jack's birth brought a deep perspective to training. And then Cody's diagnosis and struggle that brought a deep perspective to competing and training. And then um, this is actually this hasn't really been talked about publicly. So people don't really know this, and we haven't shared this, but um, Genesee and I were pregnant around the same time, and we were pregnant with our second child, and we were having a little girl, um, and Jack's prematurity was due to a problem with the placental. There's a placental insufficiency that was created in IUGR scenario. Well, about the start of the third trimester, the same thing started to happen again with our second pregnancy. And anyways, in January, Genesee and I had a stillbirth and ended up losing our little girl. And um, sorry, there's been challenges surrounding that as well. Something that we're still um, it's still been a heavy weight on both of us, and we're healing and things are going, we're good, like we've really we've faced it, and we've, if anything, grown closer to each other and loved on each other, and um, it's made having Jack in our lives that much sweeter and more beautiful. um, and I haven't talked about it with anybody publicly, but because you ask the hard questions and you're willing to go in the deep, I felt like maybe this was appropriate time to talk about it, but it's still hard. It's still hard to have held your little girl and know that she's not coming home with you. That's a really hard thing. And so, especially knowing that, you know, we had the same child born at the same time, and he's turned out beautiful and wonderful. And the stillbirth was really really hard. It was really hard. Um, but again, it's one of those things that has brought perspective to competing into life. And I know that if I can continue to persevere and push through and carry these challenges well, with a humble heart, and continue to search for hope and find it, knowing that my hope isn't in anything that this world can offer. You know, maybe that can help me um, help me overcome any challenges and adversity that I faced, and hopefully help other people along the way. Um, but yeah, yeah.
Uh, First of all, I'm so sorry for your losses. What was your daughter's name?
Her name's Grace.
That seems about right. Um, yeah, I can't even imagine how hard it is to experience what you've experienced, and let alone to talk about them with somebody where this is our first
Yeah,
conversation, right? We've messaged and text back and forth, but just to be able to open up about that is something that I appreciate and admire and respect so much. And leading up to this podcast, I was just going through some stuff online and seeing what you were up to, and none of this was online, but was going through your rankings, and I was looking at 2017, 2018, 2019, and I believe it was 2019 where you had placed sixth in the CrossFit Games. Is that or somewhere up there, right? It was
2019, then placed 11th in 20.
11th. Okay, so you placed 11th, and there's this climb, and then I saw the numbers, and I was looking at 2020 and 2021, and was like, oh, it looks like he had like a rough couple of seasons, and I had no idea that all of this was going on beneath the surface, which I shared just to make the point of you never know what somebody else is going through, and just because somebody is competing at a high level and looks like they're doing great doesn't mean that they're not handling something really heavy behind the scenes. And I guess just to follow all of this up, since we already spoke about your faith, I would imagine in a season like this one that you're just coming through or still in, there could be anger or frustration and questions, possibly even doubt that creeps in. How do you handle all of those emotions?
Yeah, yeah. I think that like I think first and foremost, I think one of the most important things is to identify what is true in life. Um, I think exploring those is an extremely important thing, and because if you don't, like anything can creep into your mind, and you will start to believe lies that aren't real, that aren't true. And it's one of those scenarios of exactly what you're referring to is um, the sadness, the guilt, the um, the grief, the doubt, like all of those can creep in and be crippling, and they can be debilitating in a deep way. But if you have identified what is true and what is real, who you are and what you want to be, like truly what you want to be in life, you know exactly what to turn to and what to look to when those things start to creep in your head, because they're going to. They're absolutely going to. I mean, the number of times that I have, I mean, you say exactly what you're talking about. So going back to like the placements and whatnot. And I now that when you said the placements, you were thinking of 2018. Was the placement 2019 place 11th. Which is that was another challenging time as an athlete, because there was a cut line and I was like 1 or 2 points out from the cut line, which was a tenth of a second on a workout, which that was frustrating. But again, I think it's one of those things of 2019 was really frustrating, especially considering the felt that I felt like I was the fittest I had ever been, and um, at that time, and the rest of the weekend were a lot of great workouts for me. Like I really felt like it could have been like a like a like a pivotal moment in my career that season particularly. And then 2020 happens, and 2021 happens, and I look back on 2019 and I was like, that's nothing compared to the pain that I felt now. Like that's not painful at all. That's a bummer. That's just a bummer. Like that's not that's not true. That doesn't compare. It was painful at the time, and I don't want to count that out. Like I've actually experienced that with a handful of people over the last couple of weeks who didn't qualify for the CrossFit Games, who really thought that they were going to qualify for the CrossFit Games, and um, they're 22 years old, or 25 or whatever they are, and um, it's a very painful thing for them to experience and to go through. And who's to say that that's not the most painful thing that they're experiencing or they have experienced at that time? And that pain is real. But if you can learn from that pain and you can understand that pain and you can explore that pain, again, when life knocks on the door and you open it and it kicks your teeth in, you're going to know how to handle pain a little bit better. That's not going to make that pain any easier. It's actually going to hurt just as much, if not a little bit more, but it's still pain. We still experience it as pain. And that's where like I really want to encourage people of seek and explore, be curious about life whenever you're going through these circumstances and these situations so that when things do come up, you can learn from it and grow from it. You can fortify yourself. Like you can be stronger from it. And if you're stronger from it, you can handle more. And if you can handle more, then maybe you can help somebody. And then all of a sudden the world is a little bit better place because we're all able to help each other and handle things that come up and it doesn't debilitate us, you know? And so absolutely, I think it's one of those things that we all need to really truly like lean into exploring like what do I want to be? Who do I want to be? So that when creep, doubt, and struggle all like come knocking, it's like, hey, like I know what I want to be. I know that you're here and I feel you and I sense you and you're in my head, but I know where I'm going and I know the hope that I'm looking to. And going back to my faith, like I know who I'm looking to and I know what that is. And that is life giving and it's strengthening and it pulls me forward from the depths of chaos and struggle.
Just so cool to hear how something that might have made you feel powerless at one point in time could be used to empower other people today. I think that transformation from feeling powerless to being an empowering presence in life to those around us is one of the most beautiful things that can happen. And to your point about faith, right? One of my favorite verses of the Bible or chapters of the Bible is Matthew chapter 14, where Peter attempts to walk on water, but he takes his eyes off of Jesus. He looks at the storm and he begins to sink. And I think when we focus on the storm around us, the things of this world, the things that are going wrong, the things that are hard, the things that are painful, and we take our eyes off of that hope, we begin to sink. But there's always that hope there that we can look to and it can bring us back up. And I just appreciate you sharing that so much.
Man, dude, no, that's really good, and I mean, you're you got your own struggle and your own fight, and so you know exactly what that is. And I think it's why, honestly, what also makes it so easy for us to connect because I know you get what I'm saying and what I'm feeling, and I hope that people can sense that too. And I think one of the other things about that is um, our stories are being written they're being written right now, right in front of us as we live. Um, but stories are written so that they can be read, so that they can be told. And I understand that. So I thank you for allowing a place and a space to allow that story to be even if it's a little painful in the moment and a little hard right now. To let that be read and to tell it. But that's it's I think that's why we've been given stories, and I hope that when people do go through trouble, trials and tribulations and struggles, when you get on the other side of it, because the other side is going to come. When we get on the other side of it, I hope that we can look back and see the strength that we've gained to be able to share that, so that it can help somebody else, pull somebody else from the depths. And again, stories are written so that they can be told.
It's very well said. Now, this whole conversation so far has been about part of your story, parts of your story that you did not have control over, at least in the way that they initiated. You had control over how you responded. But when you look back at your life, what's the hardest thing you've ever done on purpose, and why have you chosen to do that? Do that thing? Is it related to CrossFit? Is it not related to CrossFit? Tell us more.
It is CrossFit. It is CrossFit. So I mean I played 14 years of football. I played at the University of Washington, played in stadiums for over 100,000 people. I had crazy coaches that, I mean, it was a great experience, but like a challenging experience with the coaching staff too. Just they were hard on us, and everything that you would expect a college football environment to be. But even in that, like they're alone. It's actually there's a principle in my journey through football that I hope other people can learn from and also take them themselves of like I could have easily gone to an NAIA Division 3, even there's offers from Division 2. Like I could have gone to a smaller school, got playing time, started, like had a ton of fun. And I hear that story all the time of like, well, like I could go to like a smaller school and I could have a lot of fun and I could get playing time. Or like, I don't know, like I could go try to get on the team and I could walk on. And I was like, well, heck no. I'm going to go walk on and I'm going to prove myself and I'm going to go earn a scholarship. Like, that's what I'm going to do.
Hmm.
And it's like, whenever I see people faced with that decision, it's like, no, challenge yourself. Go, like, you can go back to the Division 3 school. Like, you can drop to JUCO. Like, you can go do that. Like, this doesn't work out, but go find out.
Yeah.
Go find out. Like, And honestly, because of that, I got to play in arenas full of 100,000 people. I got to experience and travel all over the country playing football, like treated like kings and things like that on our trips. And like it was an incredible experience and it was an extremely challenging experience. It was very hard. And multiple times throughout my career, I was like, do I want to keep doing this? Is this worth it? Are these 6 a.m.s with this crazy coaching staff with all the F bombs and the swearing and the yelling? Like, is this worth my time and my peace? Absolutely is, because this is fortifying me and I'm going to have more peace on the other side of it. Right. So, that was hard, but CrossFit has been equally, if not even harder. I believe that it has been the hardest sport that I have ever participated in. I've ran a marathon. Granted, it wasn't like a blazing time. It was a 3:44, respectable, like, but it was not the hardest thing. It was a fun experience. Competing year over year of trying to pull out the best in me in CrossFit has been so painful, so excruciatingly painful physically, and a mental challenge. And to re-engage with that year over year has been a wonderful challenge that I have accepted, that I've been willing to commit to, and I'm really thankful for the fruits that it has produced.
Yeah. So to be in a sport like CrossFit at the level you're at for a decade and still going requires a certain level of endurance. And so when you hear the word endurance, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, endurance is just the ability to endure challenge. Um, it's like when I think of endurance, even on a physical realm, like going and running a marathon, like you're enduring a very long challenge of physical pain and agony. Honestly, like a marathon was not easy. Like I'm not saying that it was easy. It was fun and it was very challenging. Um, but so was the marathon row that we did at the 2018 games. That was a mental battle and a fight and a struggle, but it was fun. And the endurance there I think there's an equal part mental and equal part physical ability to endure the challenge that is set before you. Keep
Yeah,
them,
I
keep
was
them
gonna
getting.
I was gonna ask what percentage, if you had 100% to divvy up here, is CrossFit mental versus CrossFit physical? Is it 50-50 or does it fluctuate? Does it depend?
That's actually really tough, and I pondered it a lot. You know, hmm, it's an interesting weight, because if you were to only give me 100%, I got to say physically you have to be physically capable, or else you just can't. Like, it's like, um, but then you look at the adaptive athletes division,
Hmm.
and you see the physical and what they persevere in, and you're quickly reminded of like, wow, so much of this is mental,
Hmm.
and you can overcome so much. So I would probably put more on the mental side than I would on the physical side. Maybe like let's just call it a 60-40 split.
Fair enough. So before we get to the final question, which again is a deep one, I did want to ask, do you have a favorite workout, favorite exercise, a favorite series of exercises, or just favorite workout that you've ever done in CrossFit?
I'll answer it this way. My favorite benchmark, and if you go look at the benchmark workouts, like the girl names and whatnot, there's um, um, Grace, Fran, Angie, all of those benchmarks. My favorite one is Jackie. So, which is just 1,000 meter row into 50 thrusters with a bar and 30 pull-ups. We've done variations of it over the years. We did Jackie Pro, I think is what they called it at the games last year, which is it was 1,000 meter row that we had to hit at a very specific time. We had to hit a specific split time, and if we didn't, the workout was done for us, which was that would have sucked. So you had to go hard because it was a hard pace that they set. Then it was 50 weighted at 95 pounds, 50 weighted thrusters, and then instead of 30 pull-ups, it was 30 bar muscle ups. So it was just like an elevated version of Jackie. And that has just been that's been my favorite benchmark. But then I think going along the lines of what we're talking about, I think one of the most beautiful things that is woven within the CrossFit community is hero workouts. For very particular reason, those are very special, and it is all about the sacrifice of individuals and remembrance of them and memorial of them, and reminding ourselves what we can overcome. And I think so. Anytime I get to do a hero workout, it means something more than just a workout. It's a very special, and it holds a very special place in my heart every time I do those.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I appreciate you sharing that. And as we look to this final question, I just want to set the stage. There are people listening to this podcast all over the place, struggling with and battling all sorts of things. Beneath the surface, everybody is struggling with something, whether it's big or small, fresh or old. If you could speak to the people listening to this podcast and you're directly in somebody's ears and they're going through a hard time, what would you say to them?
First and foremost is um, like you will get through it if you want to. If you want to get through it, you will get through it. I promise you. Um, just even facing some of the things that I faced over the last several years. Had I not wanted to, I could have sat in them. I could have let them cripple me. I could have let them stop me. And I don't mean that in a cliche sense, like that. I hate that. I'm not trying to be cliche at all, but genuinely, like if you want to, you can get through it. Because there are also people that love you, and there will be people that will help you. And if not, if you don't feel that, I'm that person for you. I can be that person, and I will believe in you. And that's really something that I have wanted my career to be, is like I want to do this well and do this in an honorable way so that I can be that encouragement for people. And you know, if you don't believe in yourself, I believe in you. You know what I mean? And I think that can be enough. So keep pushing and wake up and search for hope, because hope is not going to just show up on your doorstep. You have to look for it. But if you look for it, it will be there and it will run to you. It will run to you so fast, but you gotta look for it. You gotta search. So you gotta seek and explore. You gotta knock.
I know that that's the message that one person needed, if not many people needed. And I'm so thankful for you coming here and sharing that, sharing your story, sharing your struggles, and just being so open. Cole, if people want to follow along with you, if they want to reach out, where's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, please connect with me on Instagram. Cole Sager 35 is my handle. I love hearing from people. I also have a website, colesager.com. And I love receiving emails. There's a little contact button where you can send an email there, and that Genesee and I will see it whenever that's sent. And love getting to connect with people that way and hear their stories. And it's been honestly, those avenues, people getting to share things with me, has been some of the most encouraging things, to hear what people have gone through and what they've carried, and the number of people who have told me what they have gone through and the challenge that they've overcome, and the strength that has given me to know that when that time comes for me, that I'm going to be able to do the same. I am just hoping that I am able to do that for people now, because people have done that for me. And so I thank all of those people who have reached out, and anybody who does reach out. I thank you for that. It means far more than people realize.
Yeah. Well, I would just encourage anybody listening, if you're on the fence, reach out to Cole, whether it's on Instagram or through his website. And Cole, just once again, thank you for this conversation and for everything that you do in this world and the light that you are. It means a lot.
Appreciate it, Joe. Likewise, thank you so much for the space and the place to be able to share a little bit of my story. So thank you.
Of course.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Indoor podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Indoor Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.